All right, welcome back to the deep dive. So our mission here, it's pretty simple, really. We take this huge stack of sources, articles, community reports, all of it, and we try to pull out the stuff that actually matters. We want to give you that shortcut to, well, really knowing what's going on. And today we are diving into a technical crisis that honestly felt more like a biblical plague for the casual shooter world. We're talking about the catastrophic incident that hit Rainbow Six Siege R6S right at the end of 2025. Specifically around December 27th and 28th. For this deep dive, you've asked us to really get past the headlines, to cut through all the PR statements and understand the true, just chaotic scale of what players were calling a large-scale hack or exploit. Yeah. It brought the entire game to its knees.
And scale is the key word here. This is not just, a brief server hiccup or a DDoS attack that just causes some lag for a bit. What's so fascinating is that the failures involved the absolute core services. Authentication, so just logging in the entire in-game store, and matchmaking. And, crucially, this chaos hit all the major platforms at once. PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Series X, and S.
Okay, let's just stop there for a second. The fact that authentication and the store systems were compromised across every single platform, that suggests a failure that's way deeper than just, standard network instability.
Exactly.
If it was just a server problem, wouldn't it probably be isolated? Like to one or maybe two server clusters?
Precisely, yeah. When you see something cross-platform like that, it points straight to a compromise in the central database. Or maybe the underlying microservices that are responsible for managing accounts across all those platforms.
Right.
Authentication is the front door. The store is the ledger for all digital assets. When both of those just crumble at the same time, you are dealing with a root-level system failure. It almost doesn't matter if it was an outside attacker or some internal catastrophe. The result is the same.
Okay, so let's unpack this central conflict, because this is the real tension driving the whole story, right? The massive difference between what players were actually seeing and the corporate response. So while all these player reports are screaming security breach or hack because of the sheer visible chaos, the publisher, Ubisoft, consistently just called it a server incident.
And that framing is where so much of the heavy criticism came from. The community felt like they were being deliberately misled.
Of course.
I mean, even Ubisoft's own service status page, according to our sources, it confirmed how severe this was. Connectivity was marked degraded, and those core services were in outage.
Right there in black and white.
When your own tech status confirms a foundational system breakdown this widespread, calling it an incident is, well, it's an exercise in trying to minimize liability.
It feels like an attempt to control the narrative away from that very scary word, breach.
It is, absolutely, because breach implies a failure of security of their architecture. Incident just sounds like, some technical maintenance trouble.
A hiccup.
Yeah, a hiccup. But the timing and the symptoms, they suggested problems far, far beyond routine instability. We have to look at what was actually happening on screen for players to see why the community just dismissed that official line almost instantly.
Let's pivot to that then, to the chaos on screen. Because this is where the story shifts from just a technical problem to an outright bizarre meltdown. Players on PC, on console, they started reporting experiences that were so wild, the big creators were basically begging their audiences to stay logged out of the game.
The main thing, the first symptom, was the complete destruction of the in-game economy. Accounts were just explosively altered.
What does that mean, explosively altered?
We're talking an overnight, completely unintended windfall. Players would log in and find their digital wallets were just stuffed with billions of R6 credits and Renown.
Billions?
Billions, with a B. And on top of that, thousands of alpha packs.
Okay, so to put that into perspective for you, R6 credits are the premium currency. Yeah. The one you buy with real money. This wasn't just some infinite money cheat.
No.
This was the core financial ledger of the entire game being rewritten in real time. It's like someone instantly printed infinite US dollars and just handed them out across the globe.
The immediate effect is the total destruction of scarcity. It just devalues any legitimate purchase anyone has ever made.
And it didn't just stop at currency, right?
Yeah.
This is where it gets really telling about how deep this exploit went.
Accounts also got access to exclusive cosmetics, things you're not supposed to be able to get even if you spend money. We're talking specifically about developer skins and glaciers.
Okay, so why is a developer skin the smoking gun here? Couldn't a complex phishing scam get someone's password and grant some access?
That's a great question, but no, not for this stuff. Because these specific high-value developer-only items, like glaciers, they aren't just a simple flag in a player's profile.
Right.
They're proprietary assets that usually require specific access rights. We're talking like root access to the database itself to just inject them or grant them to everyone.
So the fact that the exploit could hand these out
Is clear evidence. It proves the exploit had compromised the deep architecture of the account and inventory systems. It had gained the power to manipulate things that are supposed to be hard-coded and scarce.
that signifies a profound, just, total loss of control. But the chaos didn't stop at the economy. There was a second wave, and this one was arguably even more alarming. It was related to in-game authority. Moderation.
Correct. The sources we have detail how the in-game ban feed, that little ticker that shows who is being penalized, it was reportedly taken over.
It basically became a billboard for the breach. It started showing arbitrary messages, just broadcasting this total loss of moderation control.
And then the actual bans started.
Yeah, thousands of accounts were reported as being banned and unbanned at random.
And that randomness is what confirms how deep the access was. This wasn't just printing a list of names. The actual system that's meant to enforce rules was being actively manipulated.
And these weren't just random players either.
No, these random bans hit major streamers, high-profile players. And when a big streamer gets banned live on their stream, that is undeniable external proof for the entire community that the core security is just utterly compromised.
So while all this digital anarchy is just unfolding live for everyone to see, what was Ubisoft's official position? Let's look at how they handled the communication. The official Rainbow Six account on X, formerly Twitter, acknowledged they were aware of an incident. They said their teams were working on it. But they were explicitly, noticeably silent on what the problem actually was. They completely avoided any mention of a hack, an exploit, a security breach, anything like that.
And that deliberate avoidance, that just immediately poured gasoline on the fire. The narrative of a cover-up, or at least of them downplaying how bad it was.
Well, yeah.
Players were correctly pointing out that core systems appear compromised, and the official response felt like, I don't know, trying to use a Band-Aid on a gaping wound.
When the evidence so clearly points to a security failure, and the publisher insists it's just a server failure, player trust just erodes so fast.
Incredibly fast.
And the criticism wasn't just about their choice of words, it was about response time. The community kept asking the same question. Why was the game still online for hours while accounts were being visibly changed in real time?
Why didn't they just pull the plug?
Exactly. Pull the plug to stop the digital hemorrhaging.
Well, that's a fascinating question about damage control strategy. Strategically, you could argue that leaving the servers up, it might have been an attempt to gather data on the attacker.
You mean let them keep going to see how they're doing it?
Potentially. To find the exploit vector, the methods being used before you shut it all down, basically keeping the breach open to learn from it.
But the sources suggest the cost of that, the scale of the digital destruction just grew exponentially with every hour the game was still playable.
Exactly. Every single hour meant more billions of credits being handed out, more developer skins granted. It meant a deeper corruption of the ledger that they would eventually have to fix.
The technical debt just racking up.
Oh, absolutely. The burden of reversing all that damage had to be weighing so heavily on their engineering teams.
So given that chaos and the less than clear official response, players started turning away from official channels and toward community voices they trusted. The sources all highlight this really strong warning from a prominent Siege creator, King George, who just described the whole situation as completely broken.
Simple as that.
And his advice was very specific. He strongly advised against spending any currency. Didn't matter if it was the billions of fake credits or even your own legitimate renown.
He warned that just interacting with that compromised economy, it could lead to bans or rollbacks once Ubisoft finally got control back.
And that's a crucial distinction for you, the listener, to understand. It really sums up the community's realization of the risk here. If you spent those billions of credits, even if the game gave them to you, you were still participating in an illicit transaction. You could be flagged as an exploiter.
The advice became really clear really fast. Stay offline, avoid logging in, and do not spend a single thing until the issue was explained and the systems were clean.
Which brings us to the inevitable and probably very painful fallout. The rollback expectation.
It's the only real option.
Given how severe this was, authentication systems hit, the whole economy flooded. The widespread expectation is that Ubisoft is going to have to roll accounts back to a previous state. You just can't leave billions of ill-gotten credits and super rare items permanently in the ecosystem. It would break the game forever.
But that process, a rollback, is an operational and a PR nightmare. The technical risk alone is huge. You could lose legitimate progress.
What do you mean?
A rollback means reverting everyone's account to an earlier saved state, and that risks erasing any legitimate achievements or stats or gear that you acquired right before the incident happened.
Oh, wow. And then there's the collateral damage of who gets punished.
Yes. The fear is that innocent players could still face penalties, particularly anyone who logged in, saw the money, and just spent it.
Maybe they thought it was a weird visual glitch.
Or a very, very generous holiday reward. Though 1 billion credits is a bit much for a Christmas bonus.
Just a little.
It creates this massive dilemma for the publisher. Banning a significant portion of the active player base would be disastrous.
So how do you even begin to distinguish between the malicious person who used the exploit and the, opportunistic player who just spent what the broken system gave him?
That's the million-dollar question. If they ban too widely, they cripple their own community. If they ban too narrowly, they essentially legitimize the gains from the exploit. It's a no-win situation.
This whole disaster just highlights how fragile the economy of a live service game really is. When that core technical integrity is compromised, everything just falls apart. And that fragility, it's just amplified by the lack of clear communication, which is what's driving all these player demands for real transparency about what actually happened.
The demand is for accountability. It's for a full explanation of how such deep system-wide access was even possible. The way they handle this aftermath, the cleanup, the punishments, the communication, it's going to have lasting implications for the game.
I mean, player loyalty is tied directly to trust, right?
It's intrinsically linked. Trust in the security of the platform, and trust in the publisher who is supposed to be guaranteeing the value of your digital stuff.
So to quickly recap the key takeaways from this, just unprecedented incident. This was so much more than downtime. This was chaotic, visible manipulation, billions in currency, random bans.
And critically, it proved that the core account systems across all platforms, PC, Xbox, PlayStation, were fundamentally vulnerable.
And that central conflict, it just remains this massive chasm between the publisher calling it a simple server incident
and the overwhelming community evidence that points to a major security breach, one that corrupted the very systems governing digital ownership and the game's economy. The implications for the value of digital assets in this whole live service world are, frankly, staggering. Which leaves us with this final provocative thought for you to consider. In a world where player investment in games like our success is built on the idea of scarcity and security of digital goods, what happens to player loyalty and to the perceived value of every cosmetic, every dollar you've ever spent? When a catastrophic global incident like this forces a massive account rollback, when it effectively proves that the entire system of ownership can be instantly compromised, how far does our concept of digital ownership really go when the integrity of the ledger can be so easily shredded?
A truly wild situation, and one that is still unfolding.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the chaotic failure of Rainbow Six Siege's core services. We hope you feel thoroughly informed.